Well, as everybody, when they came home, we heard about demonstrations and violence. Didn't know how bad it was. When we landed in San Francisco, we were told to be careful in the airport. Be careful of what? This is the America, isn't it?
The day I got discharged, I got in my uniform, went to LAX, got catcalled, got spit at, and I got on the plane and I took my uniform and I put it in the garbage.
They said, we recommend though that before you go to the airport, because we went out through the San Francisco airport, is we suggest you stop in a clothing store and buy some civvies, civvies being civilian clothes. They said, we wouldn't recommend you walk around with uniforms on. It was 5, 6 in the morning when we got out. 2 others of us, got done at the same time. There were no clothing stores open. We were away for a year. Hadn't seen our, friends, family, relatives. All we wanted to do was get home. So we went right to the San Francisco airport and walked in the airport. I was going to go to the ticket desk to buy a ticket. There were about 20 or 30 war protesters, anti-war people, young people. They're sitting there playing the guitar and all this kind of stuff. And they saw the 3 of us in uniform. They came running over, started yelling, screaming, throwing stuff at us, spitting on us, calling us baby killers, saying we should have died instead of the people that we killed. And you're standing there saying, wait a minute. A week or 2 or 3 ago, I'm out in the jungles of Vietnam getting shot at, seeing my buddies shot and killed. For the purpose of protecting your freedom and democracy, and you're spitting at me, telling me I should have died?
Did we end up getting blamed for the war? Yes. Very much so. Were spitting incidents real? Yes. Okay. And I've got witnesses to that who were special forces.
When they pulled us up to the terminal, there was a second lieutenant at the bottom of the stair yelling at us to roll down our sleeves because we weren't in Nam anymore. And he's lucky this colonel just told him to knock it off because he would have been injured by the end of the day, I'm sure. We got into the terminal, we had to go through customs, which was a shock. And we went through customs, they just took our baggage and dumped it on the floor and sifted through it, obviously looking for drugs. And then just walked away. And so we put everything back together. And then we were going to the airport. As a matter of fact, ironically, 2 other pilots that I went over to Vietnam with, we were on the same plane coming home. One of them was in my battalion, but it's just coincidence that the 3 of us happened to go through flight school together and we're coming home together. So we grabbed a cab and we went to Seattle Airport. Now the cab driver was a World War II vet, and he says, listen, I gotta tell you something. I've been going back and forth all day today, and the anti-war demonstrators are out. He goes, what they're gonna do is they're gonna call your names, they're gonna throw stuff at you, and what they want you to do is react, and then the police arrest the Vietnam veterans. So we thanked them, and we get out of the cab, and a bus from our flight with the enlisted men just happened to get there. And sure enough, the demonstrators were out there, and they started yelling and throwing red dye or paint or whatever it was at us. And we just got everybody together and got them in terminal before there were any problems. But that was our welcome home. It's very similar to a lot of Vietnam vets would tell you.
Kearny Ave, I grew up in Kearny Avenue, we used to go out and ride up and down and look for cultural experiences like museums and libraries. We weren't looking to pick up girls or anything, right? No. But anyway, we could ride the Ave. We could go to a movie, but there were 2 really good movies playing. Man, what a tough decision we're gonna have to make if we decide to go to the movies. Or before, we could go and have a dog or a burger. We could go to Burger King, we could go to Stewart's or something. But man, we gotta decide what we wanna do. And then in there, and here are people who I know loved me and cared for me. But I'm looking at them and I say, these people don't understand. They don't have a clue. And I can't blame it on them because they don't know what I did, what I went through, what I had to do. And to them, because they lived their life for that year I was over there doing all that stuff, and they should have. No animosity, I didn't hate them for it, but I'm saying these guys' idea of a horrible decision is that we go see this movie, or do we eat a hot dog and a hamburger? And again, a couple of weeks ago, I'm saying, do I work on this guy and try to save his life, or this guy? Because if I work on the one and not the other, they may die. Now that's a tough decision, not whether you see this movie or that movie. So what happens then is I just shut down like a lot of Vietnam vets. I know I can't talk to them because they don't have a clue. And again, not their fault. So you feel isolated, you feel alone. You either got people that want to kill you or yell and scream at you, or you got other people who want to love you and support you and comfort you, but they can't because they don't know how. And it always seems that they say the wrong things, not meaning to, and you don't want to say anything. So it was difficult coming home.
You know, it was actually heartbreaking. It was, we sat here and we did things for our country that they were asked us to. They needed, our country needed us. We're from a generation that our fathers and our uncles all went to World War II. It was an honor to serve your country. It was your duty to go when your country needed you. Now, all of a sudden, we did this and we went there and they're blaming us for the war. They're blaming us for all the wrongs in the world. And what we did is we did our job. And, you know, the basic theory was we were aggressors and we were going out killing babies and doing, and it was a 50-50 proposition. Half the time we were the hunters, the other half of the time we were the hunted. So it just didn't make any sense. It was tough to get your head around when you first came home.
Sitting in the airplane, it was only half full. And there was this middle-aged woman. I was at the window. It was 3 seats, you know, either side. She's sitting in the aisle. I don't know whether she just wanted more room or I had a uniform on, but before we took off, she rang her bell. She whispered something to the stewardess shook her head, and she took her to another seat. Now, I'm thinking because of what else happened, that this woman didn't want to sit by me because she thinks that, you know, I killed women and babies and children.
The only ones that really accepted you were your family, and nor did they talk to us about it. So I can tell you a story real quick, is that my mother, when I first came back from Vietnam, I was laying in bed, my mother touched me when I was sleeping. She said I almost killed her. I just reacted. I don't remember it, but she reminded me later on about it. I mean, coming back from the Vietnam War, they never turned us off. And that's what the psychiatrist even tells me. They wound us up like a clock and never unwound us.
I got home June 3rd. I got married June 18th. Went to bed that night, woke up the next morning, and my wife's not in bed. And I walked through the apartment looking for her, and I find her sleeping on the couch. And I go over to the couch, and I shake her and wake her up, and I say, what's going on? I mean, one night, one day, is it over? I mean, did I do something wrong? Did I not do something? Was I not good? I mean, what? What's going on? And she said, no. You woke up in the middle of the night. You were yelling, screaming, kicking, punching. She said, I tried to duck in between the punches and the kicks to wake you up. I said I couldn't, so I got the hell out of there before you killed me. I apologized profusely because I didn't remember it. I didn't remember it then, and I don't remember it now. And she tells me that that lasted for about 6 to 8 months. Not every night, maybe then, you know, gradually, you know, a couple of times a week, maybe once a week, then maybe a couple of times a week, then maybe, but that woman put up with hell. But it was tough coming home. It was tough because you felt, not so much the people that are, you know, the protesters and stuff, because you can rationalize that and say they don't know, they're screwed up, whatever. But your own friends and family who can't help and can't support. And again, because the military, the government, the VA wouldn't accept that PTSD was a legitimate disease state where that they should and could be treating and provide therapy for and so forth. You had nobody. You had nothing.
I was told, do not put Vietnam on your resume. I know of a couple of major companies that wouldn't even consider me, because I said, the hell with you. And I put, you know, Vietnam and the whole bit. I was even told at one place that I would be better off putting I was in jail. This was how bad the attitude got.
We were, I wouldn't say shunned, we were ignored. Nobody wanted to talk to us about it. I tried to join VFWs and things like that, and they said you weren't in a war, they wouldn't let us join. And through my thick-headedness, I did finally get to join one and did what I had to do to get all the way through that, the officers' chairs. But even when I got done being like a commander of a VFW, that particular post shunned me right afterwards and made my whole time very hard to do what I was supposed to do. I did my job well, but once I left, it was over. I never went back because they let me know that we weren't welcome.
First 10 or 15 years after Vietnam, I didn't want to know anything about Vietnam. I wasn't in contact with any of my buddies, my friends. I just wanted to forget it. I never went and saw a movie, a war movie about Vietnam. I never read a book by it. I never tried to contact any buddies, you know, that I had. I just, leave me alone, forget it, it's over, it's done.
You know, it was actually heartbreaking. It was, we sat here and we did things for our country that they were asked us to. You know, our country needed us. We're from a generation that our fathers and our uncles all went to World War II. It was an honor to serve your country. It was your duty to go when your country needed you. Now, all of a sudden, we did this and we went there and they're blaming us for the war. They're blaming us for all the wrongs in the world. And what we did is we did our job. And, you know, the basic theory was we were aggressors and we were going out killing babies and doing, and it was a 50-50 proposition. Half the time we were the hunters, the other half of the time we were the hunted. So it just didn't make any sense. It was tough to get your head around when you first came home.
So after a while, you didn't talk about it. There was a sort of a pat formula when you met another Vietnam vet. The first question was, when were you there? And the second question was, who were you with? And then that was about it. You were together against the world.
I missed the camaraderie over there. I missed a lot. But coming back here, my girlfriend at the time was still in college. You weren't socially accepted by anybody. Once they knew you were in the military, they didn't want much to do with us. I mean, even jobs were tough to get. If you were in the military, a lot of them places, they wouldn't tell you outright that they wouldn't hire you. But it went on like that throughout my whole life. I must have went through 15, 20 jobs before I finally found a company that would accept me for who I was and that I could retire from. And the only reason I took that job was for my family, so I could raise them.
Agent Orange, we didn't know what it was. They told us it would only kill vegetation. It would be on our vehicles, just, you know, look like talcum powder, just brush it off, you know.
You know, until 1992 or so, they didn't recognize Agent Orange. They didn't even recognize it.
Yeah, Agent Orange is kind of, it was kind of a surprise for most of us because we had a training film that showed us how harmless it was to people. They showed this person washing airplane parts in it, and he actually took a drink of it at one point. Our base was sprayed with Agent Orange. They sprayed the whole base one day while I was out flying. Our mechanics were up in arms because, as you can imagine, they were working outside and they were sprayed with the Agent Orange. Again, at that time, everybody told us it was harmless. But since that time, I've had a heart attack. Systemic heart disease is one of the perceived diseases or presumptive diseases from Agent Orange. And last year I had prostate cancer. Luckily it was caught very early, and my treatment was just radiation, so we got to keep watching that. But again, it's the more and more. I was deputy director here for 2 years, and it seemed like every week I heard of another veteran either having a cancer or a prostate problem or a heart attack. And so it's probably the gift that keeps on giving, right? You just now 40 years later, 50 years later, we're all still suffering from it.
But I mean, I never had anything happen to me. But my older boy, Timmy, had 4 kidney transplants. I think my exposure to Agent Orange caused his kidney disease. And my little granddaughter, she's 7 now. She was 3 years old, was diagnosed with the same thing.
I have great animosity for the time there. I believe that my son, who's going to be 46 in a couple of weeks, he's handicapped. I believe it's a derivative of my exposure to Agent Orange. I can't prove it, you know, but, you know, I have great disdain for being sold down the river.
Agent Orange, like a lot of Vietnam veterans, I think I'm really angry about what was done. This may be true, they may not, but what I've heard, and I know some guys that I know who are Vietnam veterans, did a fair amount of research on it, is that when the government, when the military decided to use Agent Orange, because they said it's a guerrilla war, they don't want to stand and fight, they're going to snipe, they're going to ambush, then they run off and hide in the jungle, and if we could defoliate the jungle and spray this chemical, they'll have no place to hide, we'll kill a lot of their crops that they're trying to grow to feed their troops, and we can find them faster, and we can kill them faster, and we can get our people home faster. So they figured if they sprayed this defoliant, they could, they wouldn't have a place to hide, we could kill them faster, and then we could get our troops home faster. Now, one of the things that they're saying, and I don't know about now, but at least initially for the first 10, 15, 20 years when the controversy was going on, they claimed that they didn't know that one of the byproducts or one of the ingredients in this Agent Orange was a dioxin, which is a carcinogen, which causes cancer. Now, since they've done all these studies, not only does it cause all the cancers and lymphomas and leukemias, but it is also presumptive cause of diabetes, Parkinson's disease, and ischemic heart disease. The other thing is they found, and this is a government, their own studies, that it's generational. So not only does it affect me and all my other fellow Vietnam veterans, but 2, 3, 4, I think they're at the 5 generations. So it might not get me, but it might get my grandkids or their children or their grandkids. So it's something, it's almost like, I say this facetiously, the gift that keeps on giving. Also my understanding is one of our volunteers here has done some research, and he said when the military, and this is why we think they knew about it, is because you can basically buy Agent Orange without the dioxin in Lowe's or Home Depot. Because there's a chemical process that you go through to make it. Now they can make it 2 ways. They can make it a short way in which it contains the dioxin, or they can cook it longer and go through more processes. That might take 6 to 8 months where the dioxin is gone. And when Monsanto and DuPont went back to the government and said, here's the situation, it's going to take us a while to make all this stuff that you want in the bulk and the quantity that you want it. My understanding is the government, the military said, no, do it the quick way, knowing that the dioxin was going to be in it.
You know, the psychologist up in the VA at East Orange said, it's not my fault. But nobody's going to convince me that. You know, maybe if I wasn't such a wise ass in high school, maybe I would have went to college. You know, maybe I wouldn't have Vietnam. Maybe I wouldn't have brought that crap home.
You wouldn't talk about the Vietnam War. You just wanted to blend in, let your hair grow, do whatever you had to do, just move on with your life. And unfortunately, the outcome of that was, through now I found out as PTSD, is I wound up taking up drinking for about 20 years, and pretty much rather excessively. I thought I was just doing it to sleep. I think it was, now I find out more than that afterwards. The VA has been very helpful to me in explaining what was wrong with me. And now I know. It was all due to, as they call, post-traumatic stress. So again, I wasn't looking for anything. I wouldn't use the GI Bill. I wanted nothing to do with the government, absolutely nothing. I wouldn't go to the VA. I didn't think there was anything wrong. I thought it was just me that I couldn't sleep. I didn't have the answers. I couldn't take crowds. I still to this day, I can't take crowds. And but I learned to deal with it, just walk away. Through the VA, they've went a great way of explaining to us what we need to do to take care of ourselves. And I still go to the VA all the time, and I'm thankful for that now. Looking back on it, I should have went to the VA when I first got out, but again, I wanted nothing from the government. I didn't trust them. I didn't even like voting. I stayed away. So it was easier to fight the war than it was to come home and live your life afterwards.
They just gave everything they had for what the country asked them to do. And they never got the respect that they deserved.
Ours was indeed a noble cause. That's exactly what I would use, that statement right there, which is part of remembrance, because it was a noble cause what we did as individuals, but it wasn't run as an end to anything, you know, and that's the sad part about it.
There's an old cliche where people say, when was the last time you were in Vietnam? And my response, and a lot of Vietnam veterans' response, is last night.
It could be anything. It could be me going up the Parkway and seeing the swamp. And I look at that swamp and I see a rice paddy. Automatically, no matter where I go, I'll flash back to Vietnam. Hear a helicopter go by. It may not be a Huey, as we use there, but helicopters bring you right back. It could be anything that'll bring you back to it.